Hey, I'm Graham Dufault, Senior Director for Public Policy for ACT the App Association, and we just wanted to provide a quick legislative update describing what Congress is going to do in the remaining time they have left in session between now and the midterm elections. The House side just took about a month off during August for recess, where they spent time in the districts campaigning and doing other things, meeting with constituents. On the Senate side, they took a week off, which is uncharacteristic. Usually both chambers take a whole month off. But nonetheless, both chambers are back in session, and they are going to do a few key things that we want to just run over quickly. On September 30th, funding for the federal government will expire. So both the House and Senate have to act to pass legislation to fund the federal government. Since the House came back from August recess, there are about 9 legislative days for them to work with. So they have to accomplish quite a lot in a small amount of time. The other thing that expires on September 30th of note is the Farm Bill. And there are going to be a few changes potentially in the Farm Bill to a USDA program called the Rural Utilities Service. Those are basically guaranteed loans for the deployment of broadband to rural areas. Other things that are going on that are also of note that are heating up are privacy, small cell deployment, and opioids. With respect to privacy, there are a couple of hearings on the House and the Senate side with Twitter, and on the Senate side with Twitter and Facebook discussing election interference, bias on the platform, and then privacy in general. The Trump administration is working on a set of principles that they're going to release sometime in the next couple of weeks that will help guide Congress on how to draft a privacy bill that will basically provide kind of a national framework that doesn't currently exist, and that can kind of be a response to what Europe has done with the General Data Protection Regulation. When it comes to small cell deployment, Senator Thune, who's chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee, has said that he wants to send legislation to the President's desk clearing the way for 5G deployment. So that is basically imposing shot clocks on localities as they are approving the siting of equipment necessary to support 5G networks. With opioids, I think the opioid epidemic has kind of impacted more or less all 435 congressional districts. So there are a lot of members of Congress who are interested in this, and on the Senate side, they're going to be working on legislation that the House side has already passed that makes telehealth more accessible to folks that have substance use disorder and other sort of remote patient monitoring and other tech-driven tools more available to folks that suffer from the issues related to opioid abuse. The other couple of things are election security and transportation. When it comes to election security, a few things remain for Congress to do. The main thing that they're trying to do is issue grants, but legislation has to pass for that in order to happen. A big piece of legislation that was bipartisan hit a big snag, and we are hopeful that the snag can kind of be released and that legislation can be passed that provides resources for states to beef up their election security programs. When it comes to transportation, on September 30th, the Federal Aviation Administration is going to be expiring. Congress has to pass a reauthorization of the FAA. As part of that reauthorization, it's possible for legislation paving the way for autonomous vehicles to be attached to that. And keep your eyes peeled for a regulatory update by Brian Scarpelli, our Senior Global Policy Counsel. He's going to be talking about our activities in front of the Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, United States Patent and Trade Office, United States Trade Representative, and a few other key agencies.